this machine. Okay, there we go. Good morning, everybody. It's 7:54 a.m. Pacific Coast time on the 19th of February. I'm talking with Clif Choi in Hong Kong. He's a doctor of chiropractic. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. And so I'll turn it over to you, Clif, to provide your CV, and you can talk about how we connected and stuff. So.
Okay, great. Yes, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I also used to be a paramedic. I went through paramedic training in the U.S. Of course, at that time we had the H1N1 virus go through the states, and basically I left the states and stuff like that. Worked at a few hospitals, a government hospital in Shanghai.
This was what year?
This was about 2010.
Okay.
So I worked in a government hospital. It was government Chinese hospital, and also tried to help start up some hospitals in Beijing, Guangzhou, and Yunnan also. But I moved to Hong Kong after failing in trying to get those hospitals started up. And of course, I'm a Bitcoin guy because of you. And yeah, I mean, basically, I've followed you since 98, I guess. It was Coast to Coast or something.
Right, the very early ones, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I contacted you and we talked about Bitcoin stuff, trying to get some scripts going or something like that. Yeah. But
yeah, in the way of the world, yeah.
That's right.
So you're in Hong Kong now. What part of Hong Kong?
But on the island.
Oh, okay.
So right in the middle.
Yeah, I was going to say downtown, essentially. Yes.
Yeah.
And what are the conditions like?
Well, right now everyone's seen the toilet paper joke, right? So, of course, toilet paper, sanitary napkins, those are still around, but bleach and other sanitizing products are basically out. Some people are hoarding them, and but really, like, it's a ghost town out here. Of course, we've had those protests and stuff like that, and I've seen and kind of predicted through your stuff that this place would empty out, and we've seen a big exodus. A lot of the stores are closed. Companies are all locked down, basically, and
no expectation, no discussion about future.
It's a ghost town, and there's some other stats. I think there was about 200,000 visitors coming through Hong Kong, and maybe it's 3,000 now. So it's really a ghost town. I've never seen it like this, and so frankly, if things don't get going in a few months, I don't think Hong Kong's going to recover.
And let's analyze that. It's early in the morning for me, so I'm a little slow here. But so you say a few months. How long do you actually think realistically from this point forward, if nothing changes and it gradually gets worse? What's the prognosis? That in 3 months, maybe a significant portion of the population will have left?
Well, a lot of the expats are leaving right now. Of course, we've had an exodus from the protests and stuff like that, but I'm thinking by June we'll have just a maximum breakdown. The real estate's starting to drop. People are actually protesting again about the rental rates. Of course, it's the highest in the world.
Right.
People are just working from home and stuff like that. All the schools are closed down till about March, but I think that'll be extended till about June.
Right.
And these are like primary schools, secondary, universities.
But so far, reasonably vital services are still maintaining, still electricity, obviously internet.
Right. Well, funny thing, like, I was going to flush the toilet and it just flushed today, and I think they turned the water off. So You're gonna have to
Or
look into
there
that.
might have been this was something I heard from, and I'm going to butcher the place, but it's a smaller town outside of Zhuangdou where they said that the sewage treatment plant lost electricity, or no, the
Oh,
pumping station lost electricity. So everybody's
okay.
water is shut down.
Yeah. Well, it could be just my building or something. I'm
Right.
not gonna freak out, but yeah, we're in this like really surreal state, kind of like when I was in New York during 2001. Everything was shut down from 14th Street down,
Right.
and that's kind of what we're seeing here.
So it's like walking around in the zombie apocalypse without very many zombies on the street.
That's right. Actually, when I talk to the kids, we tell them that the drunk people are the zombies, but now there aren't very many zombies here.
Right, right, right.
So,
Oh, sounds. But now, what about necessary supplies? How are deliveries being handled? Do you see trucks moving, or?
yeah, I took a picture of a FedEx the other day, and but I was expecting, you know, a package to get here, but I still
I
haven't
was
seen it.
thinking more in the way of bulk goods, food stores, that sort of thing.
Uh, well, there's only like a few chains, so of course all the toilet paper's out.
Right,
Sometimes the eggs are out. A lot of things are sourced from China, so I think that'll start drying up pretty soon.
right.
Um,
I've heard that there's been a huge reduction in Chinese. You wouldn't call them mainland workers or transients that go through Hong Kong on a daily basis. There used to be a considerable number, and now it's like essentially stopped.
that's right. From Shenzhen, people are quarantined for 14 days before they can enter Hong Kong.
I see. Okay, that's what's going on. All right,
Yeah,
I've got it. Okay.
yeah.
And yeah,
So
14 days, it turns out, doesn't mean anything in the way of this. That, there's people showing symptoms 42 days after the last time they could have been exposed.
right, right.
Right.
And I think those numbers are right. What you're saying, probably 20 days or something.
Yeah.
Of course, we had our second death in Hong Kong, so I think the numbers are 65 total cases.
Right.
So
So let's talk about the strangeness of this from my perspective. Okay. The what struck me instantly was that the central Chinese government did not, and this is an area where you certainly declined to answer any question. Okay.
okay,
Um, but the question comes down to, it is my impression that this time was extremely atypical. That unlike anything else in the way of a potential pandemic, SARS, MERS, any of these other things that have come through, that the central Chinese government, relation to those old ways, seriously overreacted. Now it seems that maybe that was not an overreaction, but initially it
Mhm.
certainly looked like it, to the point where that was glaring. Did you guys feel it that way as well?
I thought it was really suspicious because during the H1N1, we had N95 masks and we didn't suit up, so that looked really suspicious to me. It just kind of seemed out of place for a normal flu, and so some of my other friends, they're doctors, of course, and then there's other expats. Um, Basically, they got word that all the flights are going to be shut down from China, and so they just decided to leave.
Yeah, we're
So
seeing a great number of returning expats of Chinese ethnicity to the U.S. And
right,
it's actually
right,
gotten noticeable in my little burg out here, because we had a brief transit of some of these people, which actually
right,
brings us back to my area. They've got 712 people under observation as of two
right.
days ago.
That's
So
a lot.
yeah, yeah. Now, in general, I could characterize it as the Chinese government behaved atypically
I
with
would
this.
agree with that.
Okay, and so we can leave aside any sort of um, suspicions or conspiracies or anything that might get anybody
Right,
into trouble, but we could
right.
just discuss the curious nature that appears to be unfolding about this, right? And that is, from my perspective, again, we're seeing individuals become ill outside of Asia. But so far, there's been no deaths that we've been able to locate of a non-Asian ethnicity person. Even those who are dying outside of Asia are of Asian ethnicity or Chinese that happen to be tourists somewhere else and dying there.
Right.
So it begs an interesting question, don't you think?
Yeah, from the research that I've seen, the genome is doesn't seem like it would be a natural
A
thing.
natural occurrence. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So is that the understanding? I know that the things are shut down, and it's not like you're out there gossiping in the hallway with your neighbors. But is it
no,
your sensation that, or your impression that many people share your understanding of this?
well, these are only people with medical knowledge, I would say.
Okay.
Actually, it was somebody from the U.S. that's working on mapping this genome, and they said it was atypical.
Okay.
So, you know, complacency. Somebody said something about complacency, and really, like, that's what I'm seeing. Like, people really aren't taking it too seriously because, of course, they get their information from maybe the mainstream or something like that.
Sure. And they've had previous instances where they've been trained to see it ramp up and then die down rapidly. SARS.
Of course, of course.
So right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the words of the information I'm getting out of mainland. I'm talking with a couple of people from Chengdu, and there are several other areas where they're still able to send me pictures and so on from the internet. And that is that in spite of the claim to the contrary, maybe 90+% of all state-owned enterprises are shut down, and that there's no traffic in subways, there's no traffic on the streets and stuff. Is that the case in Hong Kong? Are people sheltering now, or they're just sort of doing business as usual?
It's more like a self-imposed exile, I would say, because of course, yeah, I am getting the same reports in China. So, but in some of the smaller cities, people actually um, they're not allowed to go out, or they're allowed to go out only to the grocery store. All of the other restaurants and stuff like that, the social things are shut
Totally
down,
shut.
and
How
we're
far does
starting to
that
see that here.
Yeah, how far does that extend into China? Because the official word in China that it's Hubei, and that's it basically.
Right,
So
right. No, this is coming from like Shanghai, Guangzhou. I haven't heard too much from Beijing. I've been trying to contact some of the doctors that I used to work with, but a lot of the expats actually got trapped during this the flight shutdown, either inside the country or outside of the country.
right,
So
right,
some of them can't get back in, some of them can't get out, and a lot of people are kind of running out of money.
right.
So um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
So
very curious.
yeah, I was just going to say just that statement. It's a very curious way to cause predictable social upset. So the in my way of thinking, the the people in charge, the powers that be, know something that is so shocking to them that they think that these measures are the lesser of two evils.
Right.
That would
Right.
seem to be the case for coming out anyway from the information we're getting.
Yeah.
There's tons of denial. There's all kinds of information about mobile crematoria and all of these sorts of things that indicate a very much higher death rate. There was one official in one of the hospitals in Wuhan who admitted that anybody who didn't actually pass 2 out of 4 tests to have the virus, even if they died, they weren't officially dead of the virus. And so they might be listed as pneumonia and so on.
Yeah. It's working in hospitals and the government hospitals. I'd like to say they could take care of it, but frankly, um, I think this is going to be over a lot of people's heads. And they're trying to contain it, but I think there's a lot of I'd say misinformation, and of course, if it were as bad as some people think it was going to be, yes, it's totally out of control.
Right. So in that sense, it is not contained. I mean, we have to acknowledge that to some
Right.
degree, it's not. It's
Right.
not a full blown let it go everywhere and see who survives kind of a situation. But the ability to contain is becoming unraveled the further we
Right.
go. I've seen a bunch of videos of people essentially defying Central Party authority as it's expressed on the ground in their confrontation with police and so forth. And it's getting um, to the point where irritation and anger is going to take over rationality on
Uh,
both sides, right? We've seen it.
oh, it's
Yeah.
I've seen it up close. I mean,
Okay.
you know, basically after you've lived in China and kind of met the locals and the expats and you know some of the authority there, um, you know, a lot of them, I would say, uh, are very nationalistic. And so the party, if you're not in the one party, then you're not on the team. And if you're not on the team, um, you know, they'll make other plans for you.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a very, uh, I would say, bad situation. Because,
Politically.
yeah,
Yeah.
politically inside China,
Yeah.
this is a mass disruption that they don't.
Will they be, in your opinion, will the Central Party be able to recover from this if it extends a couple of more months?
Uh, well, actually, I was thinking maybe by June we'll have maximum chaos. So, um, you know, after that, it could be every man for himself.
Right. Anybody's guess as to how it works out. Right.
Yeah. Uh, you know, I've been talking about that since 2011. You know, I frankly didn't want to come to Hong Kong because, you know, I kind of know how things work. And if you're not
Right.
on the team, you know,
Right.
things
Universe
happen.
puts us where we need to be, unfortunately. you know,
Yeah. I know.
so no, so I'm with you on there. I wouldn't necessarily want to choose a whole lot of places, but universe would certainly plop us there. So
Yeah.
it seems like the situation relative to, well, now what about the, okay, so there was the period of protests and there was
Yep.
tension that developed between the protesting groups and authority in Hong Kong, and that extended tension between the authority in Hong Kong and the authorities in the mainland that had to sort of control or supervise it. Am I correct
Right. Right.
stating it that
Yeah.
way?
It's, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, because, you know, there's been such a large push here. I mean, 2 million people on the street is,
Right.
you know, large percentage of Hong Kong. Um, but I think the timing of this virus is is kind of curious
Interesting.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Is the tension still there though that you're aware between the Hong Kong management and the Chinese management, or is Hong Kong pretty much falling in line with what mainland wants
Well, as far as the
as far as the
police,
virus?
as far as the virus, yeah, I mean everybody's kind of sticking with the program, and but you know the doctors in Hong Kong went on strike, and so I mean that group stepped up and put more pressure on the CEO. So
Right.
there's tension on all sides, really.
And is your expectation now that you will face a situation where the virus is running through Hong Kong the way that it seems to be in other areas of China? Do you figure that's headed your way?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know
And
the I tried to uh, push antiviral masks back in 2017. Uh, you know, basically, it's got a zinc ion layer that's
sure.
sprayed on there, and so that's a 99.9% uh, protection layer. Of course, it basically kills the virus on contact.
Right.
So I was pushing that back in 2017. Of course, I was visiting hospitals trying to push them up to the mainland too. Um, um, but you know the government hospitals, I don't, from what I saw, I don't think they'll be able to handle mass incident, or MCI, what we call it, mass casualty incident. So if it does get out of hand here, then you know, basically everyone's gonna be stuck, I think.
Right. In that case, you personally wouldn't necessarily even seek healthcare at a hospital if you assume they're going to be overwhelmed and infection central.
No, that would be a risk too, you know.
Right.
You know, but you know, there's a few other docs that I know here. Of course, I'm trying to get a consensus, but you know, not a lot of docs are I guess
Conspiracy oriented.
well, I guess they're busy.
Right.
You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, there you go. They're just busy fellows. Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I'm going to go down to Bangkok. One of my uncles, he had a zinc oxide plant. And so
okay.
basically I'm going to see if I can try to get some of those masks made. Basically, I tried to contact
I'm certain you would find people more receptive now.
Oh, of course.
Yes,
Of course.
yes.
We've got probably, I've had orders up to about 200 million masks. So
yeah.
I don't think, actually, the original manufacturer had them made in China, and so they're out.
Right. No,
So
as so many things, we're starting to see some of the, I actually had personal experience with a chunk of equipment, fairly heavy duty equipment for my sewage system here, not coming from China. And that was basically the only sole source for it.
Right.
So, you know, it's impacting the planet, although albeit nowhere near the impact in China itself.
Right. Yeah.
So one question here about your foreknowledge of this. Okay. So you were sitting in Hong Kong. Were you aware in October that the military Olympics or military exercises were going on in Wuhan?
No, we were pretty much occupied by the protests and.
Gotcha. Okay. So your first understanding that the virus was out and about in the mainland came when?
I was well, I was back in the States, so we came back sometime in January, and then I guess it was the middle of January when I started hearing about this. Of course, then I checked your old reports, and it was 2016 when you called it.
Right.
So,
so
then I did research and.
Yeah. And so your contact with the doctors, their impression of the those who are paying attention, I understand many will not, they'll just be involved in the day-to-day.
Right.
Are there, what I'm basically trying to ask in a polite fashion is how aware are other doctors of the unusual nature of the virus, and do they consider this something to ponder over?
Well, I don't think they've seen the papers yet.
Okay, gotcha. So it's an information flow.
It is an information flow. Of course, you know, there's a lot of good information on PubMed. That's where I've been getting most of the like genetic stuff, the genome stuff. And I think once they look at it, then and it gets peer reviewed, of course, everybody will be on board, right?
Right.
So after that, then everybody will be on the bandwagon, right?
Right. So let's back over to social political kind of things. In your wanderings through the Chinese medical infrastructure in 2017 and thereabouts, and you met these people, and I'm just after a basic impression. What's your impression of their reaction to after this is over, things sort of die down a bit, everybody starts recovering? What would happen if they came to understand that the virus was perhaps not natural? Would it influence their political understanding of where they relate to their party in the country?
Oh yeah, well, I'd have to speak for myself, but I think that there would be uh, a collapse, let's say, in the belief system.
Right.
I mean,
Pretty
we're
close,
seeing,
perhaps, anyway.
yeah. And frankly, like I think there's a lot of um, discontent with how it was dealt with right now. I mean, just uh, I mean, transparency is kind of like a way of life now. You know, of course,
Right.
we're blockchain guys, and
Well, we're
but
actually watching the failure, as you pointed out. Actually, that's a very astute point.
right,
In a lot of the West, we're moving in towards transparency, and even in
right,
China, they're moving in towards transparency. But we're actually observing the failure of them reversing that direction right now. They reversed to go
right,
non-transparent, and it's just breaking down everywhere. I didn't think
right,
about it
right,
that way, but that's quite
right, right,
astute. Yeah.
right. Well, I mean, this uh, Hong Kong has a lot of bright people, and of course, you know, Hong Kong has woken up,
Right.
and I think the news has leaked into China, and I think they're waking up too, and the repercussions will be probably worse in China if things get
And
out
will,
of
in
hand.
my way of thinking, would last a number of years. If this lockdown lasted even into June, the repercussions might go on for 2, 3 years afterwards.
Oh yeah, June is where I think things will just collapse. I mean, if they don't recover it by June, then you know the supply chains when they break down, then everything else breaks down.
When I went through the war college with my father in the '60s, one of the key elements that I recall from the biological warfare training was the inbuilt assumption that no social order could withstand a bioweapon, and that all organized government would collapse about 6 months from the first lockdown. So your timing is almost
Six months.
right.
Yeah,
That would place it
about
actually
right.
around either June 2nd to June 22nd,
Right,
depending on
right,
whether we take the naval college being the first place lockdown or the actual town of Wuhan.
right, right. So yeah, I'm gonna try to go to Thailand, get some masks, or you know, manufacture masks, try to get some traction or something.
Right.
But I think like this is if the numbers that they're reporting aren't correct, this is going to get wildly out of hand, just
Right.
wildfire, like you said.
Right.
So
And it's a terrible situation for everyone. Um, even now, even at this level, for both China and the rest of the world. I mean, this is just terrifically
yeah,
horrific. You know,
it
this is
is her.
this is the horror for people.
You know, the WHO actually ranked China at 144 out of 191 countries. So I think the Western world will be able to contain it. But you know, when you're ranked, you know,
Right.
on the bottom half of the scale, there's you know there's going to be some problems.
Well, the United States is 37. So,
37.
so we're not like number one or anything, right?
Yeah.
So our healthcare system, should that come to, I did some calculations, okay?
Right. Right.
Admittedly, I based these calculations on reported ethnicities in various different parts of the US. And,
Right.
and I made the assumption in my calculations that it would be first would be people of Asian extraction and ethnicity that would suffer the virus, and that I just stopped it right there. And I made the assumption that nobody else was going to get ill except for Asians. All right,
Right.
this is
Right.
not accurate thinking. This was just for the purpose of illustration. And
Right.
even then, within the United States, our healthcare system breaks down. If we have to treat even a quarter of all the Asian population, our
Right.
hospitals cannot cope.
Right. Right.
And then we
There's
don't have
also
the supplies. I mean, we've got issues
exactly.
of the disinfectants and masks and stuff not being available here. And there's gouging now starting to show up on the industrial supplier side. I
Yeah.
expected that to take a little bit longer.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, definitely once the supply chain breaks down, we're talking maybe if they're saying it's an R2, but
Right.
if the supply chain breaks down, we're talking R5.
And see, okay, let's define that for people,
Okay,
please.
so R naught is how they So an R2 is if I get sick, I infect 2 people. And R5 is if I get sick, I infect 5 people.
Right. We've got a weird situation here where I'm actually seeing R25 being reported
Holy crap.
in from people that, now this admittedly was a doctor that I can't validate, but he did
Right.
send me his certificate from the Chinese party that certified him as being able to practice at this hospital. And
Okay.
I have yet to translate it, but I
Right.
translated it enough to know that he is a doctor, was official from a hospital. It was in 2018 that he was
Right.
granted this.
Right.
And
Right.
he's saying that now he lives in an, I won't talk about where he's at, okay, because he's a Han Chinese, but he's living
Mhm.
in an area that is mostly not Han Chinese. And
Right.
he's saying that the ethnic Han Chinese, he's seeing a lot of them in the hospital, but so far the
Yeah.
local population that is more um, rural and herdsman kind of people are not
Right.
showing up in the volume. And he actually is saying that he thinks it's an R25 in the population that he's dealing with in his situation, and
Right.
he's basically losing his mind over it
Right.
because
No, I
because
saw,
he could not
you know,
could not consider that.
yeah, I saw that paper on the ACE2
Yeah,
entry point. And actually, there was another study that said basically it's Guangzhou area, southern Chinese, southern Han, and also Tokyo, Japan
right.
has the ACE2. So maybe there's some genetic family relationship there, or, relation. But anyway, genetically, those are the 2 highest populations that'll be affected. So Hong Kong's,
Right.
going to be having problems.
Are you able to do things like have you investigated the chaga mushroom and these kind of things? Are they
I've
available?
looked around. I've looked around, but I kind of stay at home.
Gotcha, gotcha. Sure, sure. I understand.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah. But yeah, I will be kind of doing some recon later. Of course, I have that mask, so I feel a lot better.
right,
I've got goggles.
right. Also, by the way, another I've heard local, perhaps more accessible version for you would be Taiwan fungus. The
Okay,
that unique fungus grown in Taiwan and exported as a tonic, usually in liquid form with alcohol, would be perfectly fine.
okay, I'll look that up too. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's also touted as being an HIV protease inhibitor.
Ah, right,
That
right.
appears to be a weakness that might be engineered into this.
I saw that paper too, and that, when that first came out, it basically got shut down.
Right, right.
So, but
It
why would?
got removed, and then there was actual pressure put on the fellow that put that out. You can contact him, and he won't say much, but he will say, "Yeah, they came and stomped on."
Okay, okay. No,
However, I heard it was confirmed out of Russia as well.
well, I'm hearing from Boston that this is not a natural thing.
Right.
So
Well, okay, and so given medical knowledge, would you say it's at least a wise precaution to assume that that might be a vulnerability, that it's not natural, and therefore there may be inhibitors that could boost your immune system? So in other words, if it's not natural, it would have to have been engineered by humans, and they may have screwed up and made it weak in an area they had not anticipated.
right,
That's sort
right.
of my thinking, right?
No, actually, I heard a report out of Japan, maybe, but they are using the HIV antivirals to treat it.
Right. And with
So
effect. I've also heard that out of
that's
Hong
weird.
Kong, early days.
That's
Yeah,
weird. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Even in Thailand too. So that's
yeah.
weird.
And so my thinking then, as soon as I heard that, and then I talked to my friend in Wuhan, or via email, and he said that none of his patients taking chaga had come down with it. I went and looked up chaga, saw the HIV
Wow.
link, and went, aha,
Right, right. No, that's excellent. That's
yeah. And actually, 2 of his patients did come down with it, but it was extremely mild, only lasted 3 days, sniffles, regular kind of flu, and there was nothing, not even an appreciable fever.
right, right. No, I heard that, of course, from you guys, and I'm definitely going to have to do some research. But I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a limit, unfortunately, on my Zoom
No
stuff here
problem.
this morning, but let's anything else you care to get out? I've got a few minutes here, so Anything else you need to say about this?
Uh,
Observations, weird
well,
thoughts?
well, of course, here's a weird contrast. We have this happening. 25% of Hong Kong is finance. There's a lot of the crypto companies here. Of course, I work for like an OTC and the Bitcoin Association, and but like I think what we're going to see also, just to flip the script, but we're going to see the crypto companies survive here in Hong Kong, and then everything else just fall apart. Of course, things were falling apart with the protests, and this
Right.
just totally decimated the tourists and everything. So things
So, but
are
in a sense, though, that actually may have been certain saving grace. I mean, during that period of time, the protests were terrible, but it did shut down travel, which might have led to a bigger bloom in Hong Kong.
right, possibly.
Yeah. You know, old Taoist, you always look for the good,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah,
Some people call me a cynic, but no, I'm a positive person, right? But
right.
sometimes you get bad, the logic just doesn't make sense. So, but
I
you got
know.
to stick to the science, right?
And say basically what's going on with it all. Yeah. So
Yeah.
anything we can do to assist? I mean, I mean, I know that things are in lockdown and it's chaos for months and months, but anything you can think that might ease conditions anywhere that could be done by people on the outside? Put
Well,
you on
I
the
think,
spot, I understand.
yeah, I think the information, the knowledge will protect you.
Yeah.
The information needs to get out, and
And
that
also, I mean,
way,
I hate to say it this way, and I don't want to get the video pulled or anything,
yeah,
but let me state that if I had been born, actually, my Chinese uncle used to say it a particular way. Okay, if I had
yeah,
been lucky enough to have been born Chinese,
yeah,
I would be very, very, very personally focused on my health because it would seem that Chinese at this moment in time are not so lucky, right?
oh
And
yeah,
so I'd be very focused on that and exploring alternative ways of boosting my immune system. You know,
right,
terrible thing if you're a Viking and they engineered a anti-Viking disease, then it's not like the Italians are going to be able to help you because it simply won't affect them. And so
right,
if you're a Viking, then you got to do Viking things to deal with it because it's on you at that point. And then
right,
recriminations and all of the other stuff in the far future once we're through it all.
right. No, definitely, it's the knowledge is going to protect, and you've been putting out some good information, and uh, I'm really proud for you that you've been
Well,
on
thank you
these
very
things.
much. Like I
Yeah.
say, I'm just an old bald guy doing what I can.
Okay.
We all got to stick together. It's us humans all on this big lifeboat together. So
No, yeah, no
yeah.
doubt.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to have
Excellent,
to
man.
say Da Ji Hao and Xi Xi
Okay.
Ni.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll keep you posted.
Yes, please do. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Cliff.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye now.
Bye.